Alright guys, so I want to talk about a story that I helped write with a fellow friend of mine. I co-wrote this, and basically what it was and what its future might be. Keyword might. So what it is basically a Legend of Korra Swamp Thing crossover. Now before anyone says, what the hell are you thinking? Let me explain something. The reason why this crossover happened was because my friend of mine really got into Swamp Thing. He's been watching Legend of Korra, and he's been checking out all the balances that kind of like Swamp Thing is the champion of the green, and he represents balance in some ways. Same with the Avatar, and he has this mystical force behind him. So basically, he asked me, "Is there any chance we can cross Avatar without doing time travel? Is there any chance we can cross over Korra with Swamp Thing?" And I said yes, because for those who don't know, Alec Holland was not the only Swamp Thing in existence. There have been other Swamp Things, other champions of the green before Holland. So, basically this story is called Decay. And, when I'm talking about the future, I'll explain why the title might change or whatever. But basically, in this story, it involves around, like I said, Korra meeting and teaming up with not the Swamp Thing that we know, not Alec Holland, but a Swamp Thing from the past. It's not really, and I'll get into why this one was called Swamp Thing, because none of them were called Swamp Thing. It's always just been the champion of the green in some ways. But basically what happened was, it starts out with Korra having these strange dreams at night, basically finding herself in this swamp, and everything rotting and decaying around her, and all she keeps hearing is this voice calling out to her saying, "The rot is coming, the rot is coming, the rot is coming." So basically she goes to Tenzin and says, "I keep having this dream of me in this swamp, and something bad is going to happen. I fear, I have this weird feeling that's worse than anything the Equalists can throw at us." So Tenzin basically tells her, my Aang, my father, basically, he told me of this swamp that had so much mystical energy coming from it. It helped him. He went after the events of the fall of Ozai. He traveled back there and received even more spiritual training in that swamp. In fact, he made it a law that that swamp would never be touched because it had so much mystical energy from it. So maybe the swamp is calling out to you since you're the new Avatar. So Tenzin and Korra go there. They go to the swamp, and I'm talking about the swamp from Book 2 of Avatar Earth, of the episode called The Swamp. And while there, basically Korra has this weird notion that she has to do this alone, so she tells Tenzin, go back, and, come get me in at least 3 days. There's something telling me that I need to do this myself. So Tenzin, knowing that he shouldn't do this, leaves. In turn, Korra gets in touch with the mystical energies around her. She's trying to get a hold of it. And in this, she encounters the current Swamp Thing. Of this generation, of her generation, this Swamp Thing. And not knowing that he's an ally, she thinks it's a monster coming to get her, and attacks her, and the fight begins from there. Basically the I don't know you, you don't know me kind of thing. But basically, the Swamp Thing basically tells her, and this is another thing, Korra actually calls it as what kind, you look like some kind of swamp thing. And the creature goes, "Swamp Thing. I like that name." So, from then on, he calls himself Swamp Thing. And he basically tells Korra, after seeing her bend elements, he basically says, "You're the Avatar. You're a being of balance, like I am." And he said, I am called the champion of the green." And she basically asks, what is the green? And Swamp Thing explains to her, he basically explains to her what everything means. The green, the red from the Animal Man books, and the rot. he basically tells her, there's a balance, and the Avatar has always been a part of these three things, the red, the green, and the rot. The Avatar has always been an essential part of keeping that balance. Basically, the Avatar is kind of tied in. The Avatar is not just balance for the world, it's a balance between those three elements of the red, the green, and the rot. And there have been times when that balance comes under attack, when the rot, even though the rot, in the comics it's always explained that the rot is never, the rot is not truly evil, it just wants more than what it has. It wants to be more, The rot represents death, basically. Such as the green represents plant life, and the green represents plant life. The Avatar represents a balance between all of that life force, because it's basically death and renewal. Where there is death, there is renewal, and the Avatar is kind of like not only just the Avatar of the world, but the Avatar of life. There's always has to be an Avatar. So it's basically the Avatar is basically the Avatar cycle. Is an abstract of basically the opposite of the rot. So, yeah. Did I not just blow your mind with this story and how well my friend and I tied together the Avatar with the green, the red, and the rot? But basically, with this, the Swamp Thing basically tells her, it's gone out of balance. Since you're the new Avatar, you haven't connected with, you haven't really connected with with the spiritual side of you. That spiritual side would have given you an edge against the rot, which is rising up. The last time the rot, he basically tells her, the last time the rot rose up was during the time of not when Avatar Aang was around, but when Avatar Kyoshi was around. In fact, the rot rose up during the time of Avatar Kyoshi, and Kyoshi sacrificed herself in order to keep the rot from spreading, And the Swamp Thing basically tells her, I fear the rot has grown too powerful. It wants more than it has, and I fear if that happens, there'll be no place in the world that will be safe from the rot. And basically, Korra and the Swamp Thing basically team up to take on the rot, which is already spreading through the swamp. Swamp Thing's been basically for the past few weeks trying to contain the power of the rot. He's been trying to keep all the creatures, and even the swamp benders that live in the swamp have been basically corrupted by the rot. And the Avatar, basically Korra and Swamp Thing have to team up and keep it in the swamp and actually try to, contain and stop the rot from growing more powerful than it is. Or what will happen next is basically the rot will spread out of the swamp and go farther into the world. It will consume everything. The rot will basically cover the world in death. And that's not good. So even though Korra is still training, she hasn't learned airbending or, tapped into the power of the Avatar state, she basically tells the Swamp Thing, I'm calling him the Swamp Thing because he's not the Swamp Thing that we know, Alec Holland. And she basically tells him, I'll help you in any way I can. And keep in mind, this Swamp Thing, the other thing I forgot to mention, that this Swamp Thing is very new too. He's only been around for a year. He recently, he was once at one point in his life, he was a traveling earthbender who, well, he wasn't an earthbender, he's from the Earth Kingdom, and he traveled and he was an explorer, and he was looking at all the beings in the forest. However, when the rot first rose up, it killed him. Well, not the rot, he died at the hands of something that was working for the rot, and the power of the green brought his consciousness into the Swamp Thing, into the body of the Swamp Thing, and made him the new champion of the green, kind of like the other champions of the green before him. So that was basically the gist of him. He's only been around for a year, and he's still working on this. He still has fragments of his memory left, or at least the person that that the swamp creature thinks he is. So I thought this was cool. And basically, my friend and I really wrote on this, really trying to tie the cycle of the Avatar and really tie it in and make it convincing that the Avatar would have ties to the green, the red, and the rot. But here's what happened to the story, guys. My friend called. My friend told me that when we got everything, basically 6 or 7 chapters in, he basically said, "I don't want to do this no more. I got tired of it." And I was so pissed because I was helping him write that, helping him come up with ideas, not to mention writing on the Marvel 2012 site, which I'm still doing now with 4 series, the Marvel 2012 fanfiction site. Again, it's fanfiction, but still, I was still kind of upset that I helped create something that most people would think a crossover that would be impossible, but we made it possible. And I told him, you want to stop, that's fine. And keep in mind, I was the only guy the guy giving him ideas. I was the idea guy, so he credited me as the co-writer, I guess you could say. But he got rid of the chapters that he was writing on, and he said, "I'm done." And what do you mean? Did you put the story on hiatus? No, I deleted all the chapters. And this is where I facepalm because I was so pissed. I didn't know what site he was going to put it on, by the way. So don't ask. I don't know if he was going to put it on fanfiction or some other fanfiction.net or some other fanfiction. But he basically said, "I'm done. I don't want to do it no more." So I've been thinking recently, if I find any time at all to, because like I said, I'm writing 4 different fanfiction series for the Marvel 2012 site. If I do think about this, if I have time, I might bring this back because it was such a cool concept, and I really, mostly for me, I don't know much about him though. I really tried to put my heart and soul into something, like I said, that most people would think impossible. So if I have any time, I might reboot the story, call it something else. I don't know, like still have something Decay or something that involved like Into the Green or something. I don't know, but I would really like to write this again, or rewrite it and really bring up those story elements as always. So, I really want... Sorry for the background noise if the mic's going to pick that up. My brother has a movie really turned up loud. But, yeah, I would really like to write this, if I at least get some story. And again, I don't know if I can, that's the thing. I don't really know if I can do this. I just thought I'd come and talk about this because it was such a cool idea. But if I can, at least complete it, because I don't really like giving out incomplete work. I don't really like showing incomplete work, that's the thing. Is, if I write it, I'll be really swamped because I'll be working through this and the 4 fanfiction series titles I'm writing for Marvel 2012 site. And this, that's going to be difficult. So, if I do write it, it might be on fanfiction.net, I don't know. I really doubt that anyone else in the world is thinking of a Swamp Thing Legend of Korra crossover anyway, so I think I'm pretty safe on that. But anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, I don't really know if I'm going to write this or not. I just wanted to talk about what I wrote, and, well, what I helped write, excuse me. And I really don't know if I'll write this. Keep that in mind, guys. So, I really don't want to hear, when are you going to post this, when are you going to post this? I just told you, I don't know if I can, I just wanted to talk about it. So, yeah, anyway, guys, I'm out.